Hello, my name's Tim. Welcome to Tim Burbage Reads, and today I'm going to tell you about all of the books I finished in September, all the books I read in September, because they're slightly different things. To start off with, I have been reading 3 books that I have not finished, and I'm for various reasons. So the first thing is that I started in September and haven't finished is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. The reason why I haven't finished this book is because it's big. This edition is like 800 pages, and it is made up of 5 different books. The first one is The Sword and the Stone, famously adapted into the Disney animated film. Then you have The Witch in the Wood, The Ill-Made Knight, The Candle in the Wind, unreliable, and finally The Book of Merlin. I know The Book of Merlin was published posthumously. So far, I've read The Sword and the Stone and The Witch in the Wood. And then, since then, I'm taking a bit of a break from it. The Sword and the Stone, I enjoyed. It was very similar to the animated film. It's about Merlin teaching Wart and turning him into animals to teach him lessons and things like that. I really enjoyed how Merlin is kind of living out of time. I think he's living through time backwards. So he knows what he will tell Arthur, but he doesn't know what he's already told him, which is really fun and kind of gives the writer carte blanche to have Merlin tell him useful things and also not tell him also useful things. It's a children's book, really, The Sword and the Stone. You also have a whole section with King Pellinore, who is chasing this beast, this questing beast, and it's like, it's not about finding and catching the beast, it's just about questing, it's about chasing it, and like, he's just been living in the forest for years. Very funny, very funny. Then, in the second book, which I think is also called A Queen of Air and Darkness, there's like different versions. I started Googling it and then I got a bit confused. But this version that I have here is called The Witch in the Wood. And then we split the narrative. So King Arthur is now king, and he has to go into a battle to beat these King Lot of the Orkneys, who are kind of rising up against him. And this is where Arthur comes up with the idea of the Round Table and chivalry, and he's just like, just because you have the power to do something doesn't mean you could do it. Might isn't right, he kind of talks about. That I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that, and I wanted more of that. Then, with the other half of the story is following this witch, Morgause, I don't know, and her 4 sons, and King Pellinore and a couple of other characters and the questing beast eventually end up in, I think it's Ireland, or it's in the Highlands or the Hebrides or somewhere like that. But she is kind of planning Arthur's demise. She's suitably evil. Her 4 kids she has raised to be like that. There is a scene with a unicorn, which is horrible to read. I found it really uncomfortable. And I think that was on purpose. But then you end up with King Pellinore. He's there and he doesn't know why, because he got in a boat and the boat sailed off and he had no control over it. And he's down in the dumps. And it's like, I found that far less interesting than Arthur. I wanted more of Arthur learning how to be king. That's what I really wanted. And it was about building up to a battle, and we don't get the battle at all in the book. It just doesn't happen. It's just like, there was a battle and they won. The end. Which, I'm not completely against, but when you're building the whole book up to it, and the book was only 120 pages or something in this very small font, but I found it a drag. Because I found the Morgause King Pellinore bits, I just didn't care. And then the third book started, and I was like, right, here we go. And it starts with Lancelot, and I'm like, is this the story of the once and future king? Not all of King Arthur's mates, but not King Arthur. So I'm just going to take a bit of a break from it. I might come back to it later and see where I get to. I did also have quite a good bookmark for it, which I got at Comic-Con, which is 13 Nights by David Fate. There you go. But it's all about nights, so that's a good bookmark. So that's one book that I've started, but didn't finish, and I don't think I will finish for a while. Second book I have started, and I'm looking to finish, and I think I'm quite close to finish, is Martin Eden by Jack London. So every month, this year, so far, I have read a Jack London book. And in September, I did not finish the Jack London book, which was a bit annoying, but Martin Eden is about 50% longer than other Jack London books. It's quite a long story. And it's about a man who is a sailor, and he ends up being exposed to a higher class of life. He gets involved in a brawl and rescues a man, and the man takes him to dinner as a payment, and he meets the man's younger sister, Ruth, and these are the upper crust, and he falls madly in love with her, and he does everything in his power to make himself better, to self-improve, to attain a higher level of class, to appease to her. She doesn't ask him to do this, but he does all of this for her. And then and now I'm about 60% of the way through, and now he has decided he's going to become a writer. That's what he's going to do. He's born to do this, and he can't sell anything. And it gets to the point where he's starting to give up, and then he starts selling stuff, and it's like, it's the hope that kills you, because he's selling enough to pay back some of his debts, but not all of them. So he's selling enough that he thinks he can do it, and he can't accept defeat because he's winning a little bit. Well, actually, if he didn't sell anything, then he would have given up by now, and he would have a job, and he'd probably be sad, but he'd have food and a coat and a bicycle, which he's all had to pawn, and he's pawning and taking back every article that he sells to a magazine or a newspaper. And then he doesn't sell the next one, so he has to pawn it back, and he's losing money every time, and he's starving, and he is, and so it's really interesting. You are so in his head, in Martin Eden's head. I'm enjoying it. Again, it's very long. It's almost 500 pages, which for a Jack London book is really long, and he's usually very direct, and this isn't. This is very introspective. So I'm enjoying it, but it's just taking me a bit longer than I thought it would. And then the third thing, which I am reading, that I haven't finished yet, is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. So I am doing this purely on audio, in conjunction with the read-along by Hardy's Books. I'm currently just right where I need to be. I think I've just finished chapter 22. I'm into section 2. This book is over 1,000 pages long. It is very long, but I'm really enjoying it because it is written... Susanna Clarke, it was written 20 years ago, so it came out in 2004, but it's written in the language as if it came out in 1810. It's that... it's written like a classic. It's in a similar, very verbose, over-the-top style like Dickens. You could tell, Dickens was paid by the word. You could tell if this was written in the time they'd be paid by the word, and it's written like that. I'm really enjoying it. It's about two magicians so far. I'm a third of the way through, and I haven't really met one of the magicians yet. But it's set Regency period, 1808, that kind of time. Napoleonic wars are going on, or Napoleon is certainly rising in France, and the British are wondering what to do. And this is a period where magic used to exist, and now magicians are theoretical, historical magicians. But one guy, Mr. Norrell, turns up, and he does practical magic. And what are the implications of that, and how does that work in London and Parliament and all this kind of thing. What I really love about it is the style, because Susanna Clarke is going for something, and she is absolutely nailing it. It has a dry humour and a wit about it, which is brilliant. It's so good. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it. But I'll hopefully finish that by the end of October. Same with Martin Eden. Now, let's move on to books I have actually finished. I think I only have one adult book that I finished, and that was a Darkness at Sethanon by Raymond E. Feist, the last book in the Rift War cycle, which I finished on the 1st of September. So I think I even put it in my August wrap-up because I'd finished it by then. And the rest of the books I read were children's books or very small books, because I've been taken up by these chonkers, and also I've just been in a bit of a slump. Some of these books I read to the kids, some of them I just read to myself. So I'm going to go through them now. The first book, well, After a Darkness That's Left Unknown. The second book I finished I was reading it to my son, and it is Dungeon Runners Hero Trial by Kieran Larwood with art by Joe Todd Stanton. This is set in a world where you have dungeon running is like a game show. It's a myth. It's a fantasy world. So he's a North, the main character. He's half gnome, half dwarf. Then you have a vampire, and then you have a girl who is a sea hag, and she wants to become a sea hag. Dungeon running is a sport, and this boy, he signs up out of real spite for his bullies to join in, and it's about him getting a team together and completing this challenge. It's very light and very easy to read. What I do really like about it is, one, the world is really well understood. So you have like the TV presenters of the Dungeon Runners kind of open and close the book. There's art on most pages, and it's really nice to read. The text is very big, and kind of clear and a nice easy font to read. My son really likes it. You've got a few like dark out pages when they're underground, they're in the darkness, so the pages go dark. Really nice humour. Had quite a nice message to it of like standing up to your bullies and things like that. My favourite character is Sandy, who wants to be a hag. She has a little crab called Mr. Pinchy, and she's like, "Oh, I could do magic." And the main character, Kit, is like, "Oh yeah, we need a wizard or a mage to do the trial, to do the dungeon running. What can you do?" And she's like, "I can make sandcastles." And he's like, "Okay, what else can you do?" And she's like, "Well, I can make different sandcastles." And that's like her only source of magic at the moment, and I really, really like that. So, Dungeon Runners. The sequel is my sister-in-law bought my son this, so thank you, Anna, because I really liked it, and I'm looking forward. I think the sequel comes out next year, so I'm looking forward to that. The next thing I read was, just for me, it was Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. And this my kids got for me from the library. Pinocchio is, again, adapted into a Disney film, spot the theme. Pinocchio is one of my favourite of the animated classics, especially like that golden age. I just think it's artistry, it really is. Pinocchio as a story is pretty different. So Pinocchio is really horrible in the books. He's really naughty and rude, and it's about him like learning to become a better person, and that's what makes him a boy in the end. He wants to be a real boy, but he literally makes the wrong choice at every single opportune moment. Sometimes he's incredibly stupid. Most of the time he's incredibly rude, and I found it really entertaining. It came out periodically, so every chapter is kind of like its own little story, which makes it easy to read and nice to read. The art in it was great, I remember that. It was really good. The next thing I read was the Ultimate Miami Dolphins trivia book. Since I read this book, the Dolphin season has not gone very well. But yeah, this is, again, super big font. Like, each chapter is a quiz. The quiz answers, and then kind of 10 paragraphs about what the quiz was about. So, about the history and all that kind of thing. And I enjoyed it. I wish it had sources, and there were a couple of typos in there. But for me, it did exactly what it wanted to do. I did learn some stuff. It did also highlight how terrible the past 20 years have really been for Miami Dolphins fans, which are the main years that I've been supporting the team. So, yeah. Next was a book that I read to my son. I couldn't find it. It might have been from the library. I can't remember, but I couldn't find it. This week has just been, you have that time when you think you have like a poltergeist or someone who just steals everything from your house. We've had that week in our house. We've just lost everything. But it's Captain Underpants by Dav Pilkey, the first book. I read this. I thought it would be a comic, but it's not. It's like a full story with big art in it. And it's about these two boys who pull off like a great set of pranks, and then they get punished for it by the headmaster. And what they do is they buy on one of those, like through the mail, a hypnotism device, and they hypnotize their teacher to think that he is Captain Underpants. who is the superhero that they write. And he goes on an adventure, and they like, it's a bit of the Man Who Knew Too Little situation, where he's acting like a superhero, but he has no superpowers, and no one knows who he is, and they're kind of trying to handle him. It was pretty entertaining. I thought I would like it more in a weird way, and I thought it was just okay. I could see why it's really popular. I think the villain that Captain Underpants goes up against is so bizarre. In how it perfectly matches up to Captain Underpants, when Captain Underpants is a fictional creation in the world. You know, I'm trying to think of another example where you have a piece of fiction in the story, and then something in the real world completely matches that fiction, and you're like, but that person who's doing that thing has no idea about this story. So why are they doing that? You know, why am I thinking about that for a book aimed at like 8 to 10-year-olds? I don't know. But then I read a children's book again, which I can't find, which I read it just for me. It was my mystery book of the month, Danny, the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl. And this I absolutely loved. I absolutely loved this because it is about a connection between a dad and his son. And that's what it's about. It's not about crime. Well, it is about crime. Basically, a dad takes his son out to commit crimes in the middle of the night. That's the story of the book. But you really empathise with Danny and Danny's dad, and how there's just the two of them, and Danny's dad does everything to build Danny up to feel like he is the champion of the world, and just build up that confidence and that skills and those resilience, that's the word, resilience that Danny has. So I really, really enjoyed that. Then, again, a book I don't have because we returned it to the library, which was a Pokemon manga that I read. It's the first manga that we've read together. We've read comics, so the idea of reading from right to left my son just found it very interesting. It was the story of one of the Pokemon movies. It was okay. Once we kind of got the hang of it, we read a bit, and then we didn't read it for a while, and then we kind of whizzed through it, because it's very little dialogue, mainly big action set pieces, but it's in black and white, so I don't know if he could really identify. He wasn't like super enthralled by it. Then a book that we've been reading for a long time, I've been reading to my children, is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So this is the illustrated edition by Bloomsbury. It's paperback. When we started reading it, so my kids got super into Harry Potter this year. Like, we've watched the first 3 films. We've been to the studio tour. My son got robes, and we went to Harry Potter in Japan, Harry Potter World, and got the wand. Like, the kids are in it now, and I'm really enjoying being in it. You know what I mean? And we started reading this, and we read the copy that I had as a kid from like 1997, 98 when it came out. And I said to my daughter, who's 5, I was like, this doesn't have any pictures in it. Just warning you, this doesn't have any pictures in it. And she was like, that's okay. And then as soon as I started reading it, she would just yell, "Ah!" And I was like, what's wrong? She's like, there's no owls. There's no pictures of owls. Ah! So the next day, thank you, Amazon, we got this. This is the illustrated edition. And it is beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. And there's Malfoy, the little I really enjoyed reading this to the kids. It is very long. This is the longest book we've read to the kids. It took a long time. It's very wordy. But it still has that charm. The kids loved it. The kids really, really enjoyed it. I think the art... One thing I really like is the pages. So there's like 4 columns per page, because it's quite a wide book. But there's full of like little ink splodges and tiny little bits of art, as well as full, kind of full page drawings. It's surprising that it does have that kind of wit and charm to it. Especially, so much of the book is Harry in the real world, and this is where it works. You know what I mean? Like, people think the magic of Harry Potter is the wizarding world, and that is true. That is true. But it's the fact that people can make a connection to Harry Potter, and then they get enough time with Harry Potter in the real world so that when he does find out that he's a wizard, they can put themselves in that situation. So he finds out on page 42. 42 pages out of 240. So a sixth of the way through. Is that right? Yeah, a sixth of the way through. So halfway through Act 1, he finds out that he is a wizard. You know, it's not the inciting incident, not by any stretch. So yeah, I think that time at the start, and even like the first chapter, you don't even follow Harry. Harry's not even born, or he's just been born, and it's the day of Voldemort's falling, and you see it through Vernon's eyes, and you get a real sense of just how horrible and self-centered Vernon is, Uncle Vernon. So this I really enjoyed. We're going to read a few other books for a while. We'll read the Christmasaurus coming up to Christmas, but Chamber of Secrets is definitely on the cards. Sorry, this is such a long video, but hey, I'm just going for it. Then my son read to me, and we read together Dogman and Cat Kid. This is, again, one of the Dogman series. This is where, like, one thing that's quite nice is it actually has, this is based, this has nods to East of Eden. And it actually has, where is it? Like a little thing about which lines reference East of Eden. I can't find it now, it's quite frustrating. But my son, there we go. Like it says, like in the book, like, oh, these are the references to East of Eden, which bit of useful stuff. And yeah, it's just more Dogman stuff. They're making a movie of Dogman, and then Dogman gets involved, and Evil Pete, and the Dogman movie's coming out in February next year, and my son turns 8 in February next year, so birthday party sorted. And then the final thing that I finished was, again, reading to my son, was Kevin and the Biscuit Bandit by Philip Reeve and Sarah McIntyre. This is the third book in the Kevin, the Roly-Poly Flying Pony, there he is, books. This is where someone is stealing biscuits, and Kevin loves biscuits. And so Kevin gets framed, and they need to find out who is doing it, and resolve all of the biscuit crime wave. This was pretty good. I still think Kevin and the Great Escape, the second book, was better because my son was way more into it. But yeah, we're now reading the fourth book, which is Kevin versus the Unicorns. These are an absolute favourite of my son's and me. I really enjoy them. The art is great. There's lots of little. I think there's basically a piece of art on every page. Even a small bit or a large bit. Yeah, tons of stuff. So I finished 10 books, but none of them were very big. But the books I haven't finished are really big. So it's been a bit of a weird September, I think. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what your favourite kids' books are. Because I've read a few here that are brand new and a few classics. And yeah, let me know what your favourite... let me know what your favourite book that you read as a kid, that you remember. And if any of your parents, what are the favourite books you've read to your children? That would be great. Give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Now, get out of my house!